Good afternoon, acolytes. Today, the Nerd Council of Doom assembles once again as we are here to update everyone on our mission, on our progress, and the world of nerdy things.
Yes.
Gentlemen, how have your endeavors at world domination been going?
Well, I've been deeply involved in the resurrection of the Lord, so that has pretty well covered things off from that edge.
Excellent.
We,
Excellent.
got the entire world searching for small packages of chocolate, which they think are treats, but have been laced with mind control drugs. So that's all good.
Pavlovian control. I love it.
The orbital platform I have in geosynchronous over North America is functioning well within parameters. However, I am having some problems calibrating the bosotron ray as I have currently focused it on Washington, D.C., and I can't see any appreciable change.
Bosotron rays can be rather tricky, Dungeon Delver.
Yes.
Gentlemen, I have some unfortunate news. A substantial part of the Q1 budget has gone awry. It was my plan to train gerbils, the most inoffensive, the most inconspicuous of vectors. My plan was to train them to manipulate humans, much like a Gundam or some other sort of giant mech. I called it the Richard Gere Initiative. Unfortunately, due to looming trade concerns, I hastily purchased a large order of gerbil feed from foreign nation, which will remain anonymous, and it turns out it turned them all insane and they escaped.
Then the plan is going according to plan, right? That's what you were going to do.
Well, it's more mass carnage and less population control. But watch your six, gentlemen.
I will be I will be enacting Operation Mobile Suit Bundam then, and we will send out power armor equipped rabbits to hunt them down.
Excellent. Excellent.
Very good.
I will hold the mobile suit assisted chihuahuas in reserve in case the rabbits do not work.
Excellent.
Gentlemen, what other news have we?
Now that we have discussed our tactical and strategic plans, it's time to turn our report to matters pop culture. And setting aside all jokes, of course, you know, they say that the famous deaths do come in threes, and March struck us, of course. Let me see if I can share this real quick with you. There, I've got it up in store if you want to pop that up on the screen there, Captain.
There we go.
Actress Michelle Trachtenberg, who of course had many notable VA roles, but is probably best known for her work on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, passed away. 90210. No, she wasn't on 90210. My apologies. But I think the hardest, most bitter pill for me to swallow was we lost the great Val Kilmer.
Yes.
I mean, I can't think of a thing that I saw Val Kilmer in that I didn't at the very least like Val Kilmer, with the exception of Island of Dr. Moreau. You know, he was in Real Genius. He was in Top Secret, Top Gun, Thunderheart. Of course, who can forget him as Mad Mardigan in Willow? I mean, and then he reprised his role as Iceman for an appearance in Top Gun 2 Maverick, which, I mean, people tend to say this very much frequently in hindsight, but it's almost like he was saying goodbye, not just to Tom Cruise in character, but to us as an audience. He leaves a great legacy of film.
Yeah.
He was amazing. Of course, who could forget him as Doc Holliday in Tombstone? And an interesting bit of trivia about that role was when he got the role, he showed up in costume. He hired a tailor to make Doc Holliday-esque clothes. He had a custom hat made, the works. He showed up ready to roll. Trip to the wardrobe department. No, I'm your Huckleberry. Just a class act all the way around. I've heard stories that he wasn't the most easy to work with fellow, but I mean, my God, he was dedicated to the craft and he was excellent at what he did. So Val, we will see you around, my friend.
I was going to say, quick story. I saw an interview with Powers Booth about where the interviewer asked him, what was it like working with Val Kilmer, or how was Val Kilmer on Tombstone? And Powers Booth said, I never met Val Kilmer. I only met Doc Holliday.
Yeah.
Michael Biehn has told that same story. So yeah, I never worked with Val Kilmer. I only worked with Doc Holliday. Wonderful story.
Just a bit of an aside. I'm totally blanking on her name, but the woman who played Bab Morda in Willow also died last week or the week before.
Yes, and I know who you're talking about too, and I'm going blank. I'm going blank with her. There's your see. I think if Val had been healthy, like, wouldn't he have been awesome to have had in like the phase 1 of Marvel movies as a villain or a hero? Wouldn't it have been amazing to have had him there?
Yeah.
But and finally, if you're a fan of small indoor grills or heavyweight championship boxing, then this will come as a bit of a shock. George Foreman passed away.
Yeah.
The spokesman for the healthier alternative to grilling, the George Foreman Grill, and heavyweight champion for many years. He left us, and yeah, I remember seeing him box when I was a kid, and honestly, for those of you who know your armored vehicles, it was like watching the T-28, the prototype, like 100-ton U.S. super tank that they built 2 of for World War II, and then World War II ended before it could see service in Europe. Watching him in the ring was a bit like watching one of those things move. It would just slowly turn towards a target and rumble towards him, and he had that. He had just a devastating punch, but I think most people probably remember him most fondly for the George Foreman Grill, which certainly, if you wanted to cook a couple of small steaks or a single large steak in one go, in a very efficient fashion, the Foreman Grill was your go-to. So so fare thee well, George Foreman.
I had a George Foreman grill, and I think I used it about 3 times, and the amount of grease buildup and cleaning involved, even though it was a simple, as the commercial said, a simple wipe down, but you'd wipe it down and the Teflon would come off.
Ooh, yeah,
so I don't know how much of that I ate. I stopped using it after that.
Well, I mean, the only side effect of Teflon in the human body in medium term is hair loss. So I think Sorry. Anyway,
Are we going to talk about your own acreage up there, or are we just skipping over that?
hey! This is a proud and noble skullet. It is the
that's why I'm here. I make it look like a lush forest over there.
Yes, Yang is entirely solar powered. He is part of our green initiative of World Takeover. So
We need that ESG score.
Absolutely. Larry
and
Fink will never see it coming.
For anyone who's interested, there was actually a really nice, what would you call it, docudrama on Netflix about George Foreman, about his life, and there was a lot of controversy with him playing for the U.S. team in the Olympics during civil rights, and sort of his point of view, and sort of how becoming a minister really turned his life around. So it's a little bit out of the usual for what you'd expect on Netflix, but very nice.
That is nice. That's very, very, very cool of Netflix to do. Not that it will save the Netflix executive staff when we raise the black flag, but it was nice of them to do anyway. So yeah, that is the sad news of the day, unfortunately. Well, no, it's fortunate that that's all there is, but so moving right along, gentle folk. Now, I think I speak for all of us here at the Nerd Council of Doom, and Yang, you and Dungeon Minister, feel free to interrupt me if you want. But you guys, we don't talk politics much here on the show, insofar as it does not impact pop culture. Which brings me to the next point, and that is, of course, the tariffs, the tariff war, the ongoing tariffs. When you move little plastic men around on graph paper, you don't think much about where your pretend elves come from, but nowadays they mostly come from the People's Republic of China, aka West Taiwan. But the simple fact of the matter is that all of our gaming crap is made overseas. It just is, unless you're talking about something bespoke, managed by somebody prints it off on their brother multifunction, or if they're Hulk Hogan brother multifunction, it's coming from China. And well, we just told China, we just expressed to them our desire for a more equitable trade agreement, and that is as topical as I'm going to be. Consequently, our pretend elves and our dice and our yes, even our graph paper and our books, and this does impact the old school as well, because all of this is printed in China, because you can pay a man 19 cents a day and then laugh at him and throw him out of the factory when he comes up with weird cancers that he didn't have when he started working there. And that is why leisure items and many consumer durable goods here in the West have not absolutely exploded in cost. But to bring this back centric to our end of the hobby, many retailers and many small game developers, and it's even gotten to the point that a board game company is suing the White House here in the United States, to which I say, of course, enjoy your legal freedoms while you have them, because when we take over, we're doing away with that. It'll be are we still going to do trial by combat, gentlemen? Are we
Obviously
still trial by combat?
You can't get rid of that.
Last time you tried it here, we burned the White House down.
Well,
technically that was the British.
Anyway, but the impact on the hobby is being felt. It is resonating. Now, myself, unless, speaking of resin, that raises the price of liquid resin for 3D printing, or any other minor stuff that is far outside of my end of things, as it were. It's not really going to impact me that much, but well, Yang, you have a Kickstarter going. You have printable goods.
Yeah.
Yes,
that
goods that will need to be printed.
Goods that will need to be printed. Are you now looking at this with a pensive glance?
I am sweating bullets. The Kickstarter was successful, but
that's
not
absorbing
that
them.
Successful. It was successful enough to print things at 2024 budgets.
Yeah.
I will figure out how to get it done, but I believe there will be a second chance Kickstarter popping off in September.
Yeah, and it's gig economy. It's a lot of the gig economy has focused on easy access to stuff. I mean,
well, I have found just on the not running a Kickstarter, but having supported some, the announcements going out. Well, we got your pledge, and that's great, and we charge you for the shipping, and that's great. We may need to charge you more for the shipping alone.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, that is the other potential problem. If the Kickstarters are, let's say, done by Americans and they're being shipped out of the US, I had a problem last year where there were a number of Europeans who said, like, hey, we'd really like to back it, but I can't afford to back a physical book because, by the time it gets to my country, it would be like $120. And it's, that's as much as I love to say my book is worth $120. It's probably not.
Yeah.
So I think, well, one thing that's going to happen is it's going to be a lot more digital. But what I am thinking might happen if people were smart is start to partner up with foreign countries. So like I sell my thing here. Maybe I have some contact, let's say somewhere in the EU, and I can get it printed and shipped from there. So, the actual physical book never touches the US, and maybe it's technically a license by whatever European printer.
Well, that is what things like I know Patreon does for its tier rewards. People who subscribe, they're in the EU, and their mug was shipped out of the Netherlands or something. So it never has to cross. Now there's some iffiness there, right? Like, oh, we have a branch office. There's some iffiness in how that all works. I think there might be some loophole exploitation, if not outright malfeasance involved in that kind of thing. But
this is a bad thing.
Yeah, well, but that's the way they get around those issues. Both of that was before any of this. That was just had to do with shipping, right? Because shipping costs so obscene now. So,
well, two of my favorite things to watch on YouTube when I'm not watching my fellow TTRPG and pop culture YouTubes are car restoration and revival channels, which are just stupid fun. This Le Mans has been parked in a barn in southern Wisconsin for 38 years. Can we drive it 800 miles home? And guys will show up and they'll, over the course of 12 hours, they'll get this car fixed and driving. And another is in kind of a similar vein, and why I ended up watching car resto videos, by the way, because YouTube was just like, you like seeing old crap fixed? Here, watch car stuff. We must get a hold of YouTube's algorithms, by the way, gentlemen. The ability to manipulate people through media like that is a powerful tool. I'm sorry, I digress. In the vintage computer restorations, it's like, okay, well, the PRAM battery on this Mac sat inside this Mac that was in storage in a warehouse for 30 years, and it's eaten a hole through the motherboard. Can I fix it? Can we get it booting again? Both of those seemingly disparate hobbies, endeavors, the car resto guys will, they go to these small towns, they find these absolutely rust bucket cars, and then they go to the nearest O'Reilly's or AutoZone or wherever, and they start and they buy parts, and they always joke about it because the parts are usually never good. It's like, okay, we picked up a fuel pump and we bought another fuel pump. Why? Because they're made in China, and we know this one's going to break on the 800-mile drive back home. We just know it is.
Yeah.
But they were cheap. Now those guys can't go buy cheap Chinesium car parts anymore. And on the flip side, all the computer resto and computer hobbyist guys, all of them are sponsored by PCBWay. PCBWay is a production on demand fabrication company. You can design a small computer, send those plans to PCBWay, and they will send you the printed circuit boards. Or let's say, you have some rare personal computer from the 80s and a bracket that holds up the proprietary power supply inside has completely crumbled because it's nigh on 50-year-old plastics. Hey, I designed this in Tinkercad and I sent it to PCBWay and I had 10 of them printed up. If you have a Tandy whatever, hit me up. I'll send you one. Now that the price of that is going to skyrocket. So, a fistful of small circuit boards to expand the memory of your Commodore 64 or fix the power supply of your IBM PC Junior, instead of being, I bought 10 and I paid $9.99 a piece. It's, I bought one for myself and I'll put the plans up if anybody wants to pay for them themselves. So it's having a ripple effect in a lot of niche hobby areas, and to either side, both side, no sides, screw sides. We need solidarity here. Fix it.
Off-Grid mentions PDFs and printing at home being a solution. One thing about that, though, is I do wonder when, if ever, PDFs and that kind of electronic resources are going to be dinged as well, because it is at this point a sort of backdoor way of getting things around, tariff protections and border protections and all, getting around all sorts of stuff, right? Communicating it digitally. And the idea of a digital product or service, and where are you paying tax for it, if anywhere, and when it goes across borders, what sort of, I remember for last year's Claricon, Paint Minis Live, Bill, he came up here with a bunch of minis, and they wouldn't let him bring probably a couple dozen minis or so into the country to paint for people, because this little tiny pittance, it fit in a box kind of thing, was somehow endangering the Canadian miniature economy, and local sellers. If that level is being, then why is the PDF that is coming to me out of the States or out of Europe or vice versa, why is that not somehow a threat to the intellectual content creators in the target country, right? So that opens up the possibility that even that's going to be eventually, as that economy gets bigger and bigger, it's going to be hunted down as well.
Yeah. Also, some of it is sort of impractical. So my campaign guide is targeted to be around 450 pages. Not many people want to print out 450 pages of anything at home. because that's going to cost you a small fortune just in ink.
Yeah.
And in addition, like the paper is not going to be as nice. The image quality is most likely not going to be as nice. And people like to have actual nicely bound books. So
Mhm.
it's my Kickstarter was about 50% PDF and 50% print version. So, there's still a lot of people who prefer to have a physical
Right.
object.
Oh yeah. Well, even if you do print off a PDF, you got to buy the paper. That's got to come from
Yeah.
somewhere. Now, I happen
Yep.
to live in a country, and I think we all live in countries where there's lots of trees and lots of lumber and lots of paper industry. But that isn't
And yet,
universal.
up until a couple of months ago, we bought it from Canada.
Yep.
The ink from China, the
Ink.
paper from Canada.
Yeah, and then if someone, okay, I'm going to sell an STL, and that'll go around the world, but the resin's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not making phenolic resin in the United States. I can guarantee you that.
Now,
not legally, they aren't. Down the street
No.
from you, maybe in Florida, but
I can neither confirm nor deny.
can't we turn meth into resin?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
If we can, then Canada is in.
We're not monetized, folks, so we can get away with saying
we
stuff
can say
like
anything
that.
we want.
Yeah.
So I do potentially see this as an opportunity for some entrepreneurial people. So the comic industry, indie comics are going through exactly the same thing. A lot of people would print a lot were printing in China. Some were printing over like in Lithuania and whatnot.
Lithuania.
Who knew? But one thing that's interesting is some people are starting to try to take matters in their own hands. A guy that I've had a guest on my channel a number of times, Peter Samedi, who runs Alterna Comics, which to my knowledge is the last Western comic book company still printing on newsprint.
Wow.
He's talking about buying his own printer just because it's a real pain in the rear to get people to do short runs. And for people who don't know, short runs are basically like smaller print runs. Most places they want you to run like 5,000. If I print a book and I need to make 5,000 of them, and I only have like 50 people who want to buy my book, I'm going to be operating at a huge loss. So I think in this economy coming up, we will find people who are willing to do short runs of printed materials and both paper and 3D printed materials. I'm hoping we'll start seeing a lot more. I don't know if you say boutique companies, but smaller companies really cater to those markets closer to home.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, I say we go into the business of black market minis. I'll hang outside. We'll hang outside a convention. We'll make a run up to Canada. You be our point man over there, Dungeon Minister, and the Delver and I will go outside of cons, open our trunks. Holder, yeah, kobolds.
Holder.
You need some kobolds?
Want to buy a goblin?
I'm okay with it. Mark Dickey says Troller Games prints their books in the US and they have to buy their paper from Canada and their ink from China. The mechanical parts to their printers, which have to run for days at a stretch to print book runs, are not milled in the United States. I can guarantee you that.
I actually know what happened to the paper industry in the US. I had family that worked in purchasing, buying forms for insurance companies. This is like right before the internet hit, and everything was made here, and paper was dirt cheap. But then environmental regulations went up, and it became prohibitive. Even to the companies like there was like Georgia Pacific, they had their own forests, which they would manage, and they would cut down a certain number of trees in one part of the forest. When they're cut down, replant, go to the next area, and they would do it in a 10-year cycle. But that became not cost effective with regulations and probably the government's reluctance to see spotted owl blood being spilt for proper books, but what can you do?
Yeah, I know the paper industry in northern Wisconsin. Well, I mean, when I lived there, was still going, but then that was a while ago. That was quite some time ago.
Yeah, you
Um,
could you could tell by the smell, right?
yes, you
Yeah.
could.
I mean, it's not to say that there's zero, but there's also there's also a lot of Canadian wood in like home construction and even
Yeah.
some of the big box
Mm.
stores. Like it's not even U.S. wood anymore, and we have more forests now than we did 100 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm sure we
Yeah.
can figure out a plan to make sure we don't destroy all the forests, but yet have wood for things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just remember under the Clinton years when there were a lot of domestic terrorists here in the United States who are big into tree spiking,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is
Mm.
a horrifically dangerous thing to do. It is it's attempted murder. I regard it
Mhm.
as attempted murder. But all these bleeding hearts were tearing their teeth out and wailing about, spotted owls and, this rare kind of moss that only grows on these trees right here that we just discovered. It's like, oh no, well, if you didn't anyway.
No.
Anyway, the point being is, um, even then, the Clinton administration controlled USGS and Department of the Interior said there are more forests now than when white men first came to the United States, to the North American continent 500 years ago. We have millions more acres of forest because we have been assiduously planting trees as crops since we came up with the idea of, you know what, we need some more wood. We're going to need more wood later.
Now, if you look at pictures of I've seen historic shots of the village that our church is in, and you don't recognize it at all because there's not a tree in sight. They've all been cut down for wood, firewood, for building, for furniture, etc. And now, I mean, the place has got trees all over the place. It's lousy with trees because we don't make our own furniture anymore, and we're not using wood burning stoves. So we just don't cut them down, right?
Yeah. Anyhow, so that's where we are with the durable bits and pieces of our beloved tabletop gaming hobbies. I mean, look, I have been on record as saying I absolutely love Dwarven Forge. I think if you're afraid of, and rightly so, of what a resin 3D printer does or what a filament 3D printer does, you don't want to screw around with the robotics hobby that 3D printing on filament is, and you don't want to screw around with the toxic waste production hobby that resin 3D printing is. Dwarven Forge is a magnificent alternative. This tariff thing is going to be brutal for them because Stefan Porconi always talked about how much he loved working with his friends. Like he got to be friends with the businessmen in China who were fascinated by what he was doing. And when he started explaining Dungeons and Dragons and that sort of thing, like it caught fire. Like the president of the company, like took the story of D&D home with him. And then the next time they saw each other, according to Stefan, he was telling how his kids they didn't have the rules. They just improvised a Chinese mythic fantasy tabletop game with all the factory seconds of Dwarven Forge he was bringing over. So, I mean, now it's like, yes, it's boutique prices already, but how is a company like that going to maintain?
Yeah.
There aren't, I mean, that stuff that needs a foundry to make. That's not a that's not a well, we could, no guys, it's cool, we can set this up in a warehouse here in Flatbush. No, there is a factory in China that makes Dwarven Forge. So I mean, and yes, off-grid gaming, we use We use Dwarven Forge here at the house, and I have for 25 years. I absolutely love it. If you're not going to print and you don't want to, you don't want to spend hours with a hot knife and styrofoam, which you can certainly do. Dungeon Minister has made some absolutely gorgeous pieces of terrain. So
I made a few.
just some beautiful pieces of terrain. If that's not your jam, if you just A, don't have the time, or B, just don't want to, Dwarven Forge, and this is not an endorsed thing, they're not an advertiser or show partner or anything, but Dwarven Forge is really, really gorgeous. It's just about probably, I am not stating this as fact. If they somehow manage to keep prices down, God bless them, but it's probably about to get prohibitively expensive.
Yeah. So if you have extra money, you might want to put them on those virtual tabletops.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's where things are going to be going for push more in that direction, I think.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think probably what happens is people's piles of shame shrink, and I would say personally that the number of minis in storage compared to the numbers of minis that hit the table is a pretty lopsided equation, and you just find reasons that well, I've got all these mind flayers. I guess they're going to go into a dungeon full of mind flayers.
Yeah.
For some reason, I decided to buy 30 of them or whatever,
Yeah, I mean,
Out of
I've
the
even
back of a car.
out of the back of a car.
Well, I have long harbored a desire in our parish to set up a sort of cottage industry, the way monasteries and convents will have, and the thought I had was because there had been knitting mills in the Glen, in the village where our church is, and I thought like to set up a cottage industry knitting business and use all Canadian wool from like the surrounding areas, because there's a few sheep farms around. They do wool. They don't do wool on a big scale, but they do it just for the sake of the sheep. They're dairy farms or meat farms, but they shear them for the comfort of the animal. And the whole thing of using all of that, it's a pipe dream. It's a totally pipe dream. But maybe now instead, I should be setting up miniature making and book printing for for TTRPGs.
Yeah. You know what? As a consumer of many fine Belgian ales and whatnot that come from Trappist monasteries, I say go for it.
There you go.
You're not Trappist, obviously, but the Anglican monastery produced miniatures and TTRPG books. I love that idea. Somebody write that down.
We'll have the logo will be a monk, painting a little mini.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Being this close to Appalachia, Bill, don't you think we could find a bunch of toothless old men who could whittle us a bunch of kobolds?
Very possibly. We could do that. But whittling kobolds. That is one of the less popular Dungeon Synth and Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs mashup albums, Whittling Kobolds.
I like that.
There we go.
Like that.
Illuminated copies of Beck Me books. Oh gosh.
I have to say, Larry Elmore and Jeff Easley sort of beat me to that one.
Yeah.
With much better art than I would produce.
Yeah, but I mean, you could go the other way and just go hard in the paint on the medieval style art, where it's like completely flat and distorted. It's like, here's a guy standing next to a castle. Castle's this tall, guy's this tall. Perspective, what's that? Uh-oh, we lost Dungeon Minister's audio.
Yeah, we lost you.
There we go. Maybe the drop cap, and inside of the drop cap is a beholder.
I love it.
That's
I absolutely
nice.
love it. Well, unfortunately, one company that's not having problems with finances right now, and note, I put the emphasis on not, are our chief rivals for world domination, and that is, of course, the folks over at Hasbro. Now, Speaking of cottage industries, there is a cottage industry built up around going on YouTube and wailing and moaning and groaning and screaming and vetching and so on that Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast are dead and they're going to go away any day now. And the truth of the matter is they're not. Hasbro did gangbusters last year. Last year, their first quarter 2005 financial results are out. I know people who have a lot of money invested in Hasbro, and they sat in on this, and they listened to the report. This is not like we did good comparatively, or we did good, but D&D not so much. No, they did game. There was no COVID to give them an uptick. People weren't shut in their houses. This is not coming off of Christmas. This is not they're doing fine. They're doing absolutely fine. I don't like saying that, by the way, guys. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not, yay, Hasbro. They're doing great, which leads me into something that I have talked about on my own channel. And Yang, I know you and Dungeon Minister are at least aware of this. The high-level departures from Wizards of the Coast recently. Now, a lot of people were speculating that the failure of Sigil, their virtual tabletop program, to launch the 30 layoffs that came with that there's there's cracks in the foundation there. It's the beginning of the end. They're hemorrhaging C-suites over at Wizards of the Coast. No, the executives who've left probably knew that the stock report from Hasbro was going to be gangbusters. For those of you who aren't C-suite executives, or maybe you are and you don't do this, most companies have stock options that you can buy into, but you cannot exercise those options. You can't sell shares. You can't trade. You can't do anything with it until you leave the company. So my new fan theory is not they got out because something bad's about to happen. They got out because they knew they could get rich doing it. I mean, Chris Perkins, love the guy or hate him, Chris Perkins wrote first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons articles for Dragon Magazine. That's how long he was at TSR through to Wizards of the Coast. To put this in perspective, Jim Ward, Gary Gygax, and Rob Kuntz, their employees' tenures at TSR added together don't quite make up his working with Dungeons and Dragons in terms of length of time. That should really give one pause. And he was 58. If I'm 58 and I'm finding out that come end of April, I'm going to go from being pretty well off to actually capital R rich, I'm pulling that ejection handle. I can play D&D with my friends.
Yeah.
I don't have to sit in an office and write it anymore and worry about, did I say the wrong thing on Twitter? Is this new D&D hated? Is it loved? Whatever. I think at that point, working from 1988 at the very youngest to 2025, I think I can cop a walk at that point.
And I mean, being in my 50s, I think we're all really in that category. Young, you look a little younger than, but
almost.
I do. Yeah, I would say, if you've been doing that job for that long, quite a part, even if there was no wealth to be had, like, okay, I'm done. I could easily imagine if you've been doing it for, just like, okay, I think I just want to go do something else or nothing. Like, I'll get a job at McDonald's now, right? Because boy, I've just been doing this one thing for so long. And they just released a new version, which wasn't a new version, right? But they just released a new version. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm out. I could see that, with or without the money. But yeah, you're gonna make a good point. If he's got stock options,
Yeah, and if you can only exercise them when you're out.
yeah.
I mean, all feelings about additions, about rule sets, about pretend elves on graph paper aside, dude, go sit on a dock and watch the ducks screw, because honestly, you've earned it.
Yeah.
Why did the ducks have to come into it?
Why not? Birds aren't real, and ducks are attack submarines.
The ducks at the park are free. You can just take them home. I've got 8 ducks at home.
The government doesn't want you to know that. But anyway, so yeah, the high level departures at Wizards probably had more to do with feathering one's nest than they had anything to do with, hey, D&D is going to get sold off and Hasbro is going to be bankrupt next week. And guys, again, I want to emphasize, I'm not a fan of this company. I'm not a fan of the direction D&D has taken. All the D&D I ever need is on the shelf right over here. And I think that's true of all of us. Dungeon Minister doesn't have the right D&D, but we do what we can. But all of that aside, yeah, they did really well. Now, how well will they do? Because 99.9% of their stuff is manufactured in China. What will the second quarter report of 2025 look like if a trade deal isn't reached? We'll let you guys know. We'll be back on that subject.
Well, I will say that I have not quite given up on the idea of this being part and parcel with them trying to sell at least the D&D brand, or getting someone at least to be like a sole licensee. So they're sort of, they'll collect some royalties on it, but somebody else is going to make it. Because these are all the classic business moves that you would do if you were going to do that. You would get rid of senior staff that was making more money. And I'm not saying that they were pushed out. It could be, they gave them a talk like, hey, stock's going gangbusters. We'll give you, X number of dollars to leave now. They're cutting the virtual tabletop, so they're cutting expenses. I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong. It could be a twofer. Could be they saw the writing was on the wall and said, hey, this is a great point to jump out.
Sure. And yeah, I think if Tencent rocked up to him and said, hey, here's $1.5 billion. We want D&D. You guys are the sole merch licensee. I think that deal would be inked so fast that the paper would catch a second-degree burn. I really do.
I don't know about Tencent right now, because Tencent's over in China. So
right. Well, yeah, they're worth about 10 cents in the States. 10 yen.
10 yen now.
Isn't it? How do you say YUAN? How do you pronounce that?
UN?
UN? Yeah,
10 yuan.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a case where we could both be right.
Yeah.
Because if again, Hasbro's in the catbird seat. If somebody rocked up and they had enough market cap to swallow D&D and leave Hasbro as the company that makes the tchotchkes, the t-shirts, and they get some back on licensing, then absolutely, unquestionably.
Yep.
And off grid, yeah. I mean, that's with the exception of Shadow Dark, and I only accept that just because I haven't tried it yet. Everybody's like, Bill, you got to try Shadowheart someday. But yeah, no, I first edition AD&D, that's the jam around here, in the Delver's Dungeon, and Dungeon Minister Beckme and Yang, you do your own thing. But the point is, we don't necessarily have to line up at the Hasbro trough.
Mhm.
But plenty
No.
of people do, and apparently enough people did to make them very happy this quarter.
Yep.
Well, and it has been pointed out they make other things other than the books.
Yeah. Now, to me, this is potentially the most dangerous thing. Plenty of money to be made from D&D for Hasbro through licensing. The licensing is, for me, potentially the most dangerous thing, because some executive is going to say D&D should be a lifestyle as opposed to an actual product. And that's, it's the same thing we saw with Marvel, right? Really, before the Marvel movies came out, it was mostly comic books, and you had T-shirts, you had underoos, and this kind of that stuff. But it was still very much like sort of within its lane. Whereas like now, it's more like, oh, I want to be a Captain America, or I want to be an Iron Man, and it's like, no, that's one person.
Well,
And that's potentially, and I think we can already start to see the effect. Like, would there have been a barista simulator module in 1980? No, I don't think so.
No,
Um,
no.
They've been trying to open it more, but I can see in the future, like a My Little Pony module for D&D. I can see, any Strawberry Shortcake or
yeah.
Transformers or GI Joe. Instead of
Yep.
making it their own game and their own thing, they're just gonna plug it all
Well, I
in there.
mean, that's up there with all the clones, right? You
Mhm.
just cob over the BX rules and throw a different skin on it, and you can have any game you want. You have any genre, any setting, it doesn't matter at all. And yes,
Mhm.
Rabowski, I was thinking of the D&D toaster, actually the D&D coffee maker.
I
Was
have the
on the
D&D
list.
waffle iron. I got
Does
it for Father's
does
Day.
it make an ampersand shaped waffle at least?
They really missed the boat on that,
Yeah.
and it's a round waffle, and its main design is an unnumbered D20. It's just a dodecahedron, um, uh,
But the waffle looks
in the middle of the waffle.
But the waffle does have something on it when it's made.
No,
It's got
it just has the dodecahedron. It
okay, but
doesn't.
that's something. It's not like
Right.
just a waffle, and
That's something.
the waffle maker is
Yeah.
shaped like it.
They bought me two for Father's Day last year, and they were both TTRPG themed waffle irons, which saying those words, I mean, I feel like I'm having a stroke saying that. But the second one, which was not a licensed product, is more of a D&D waffle iron than the D&D waffle iron, because it makes mini waffles that are little character portraits.
Yeah.
There's a dwarf, an elf, and a wizard.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'll make some waffles for our next for our next corporate meeting, gentlemen. But
Thank you.
you're quite welcome. But
Just email them up to us.
yeah,
Yes,
I'll have to waffle PDFs.
Instead of our pancake breakfast fundraiser, we'll go for waffle breakfast fundraiser.
Waffle breakfast. Yes, exactly. So yeah, but yeah, no, as far as the lifestyle thing, Yang, I think that's actually been going for a while. I mean,
It has, but it's not total. There's still some
Well-
products which are, still gaming oriented.
We're
I fear it could be much worse.
we're all
Much.
children of the 70s and 80s, though. I mean, you remember the lunchbox, the pencil case,
Sure.
the folders,
The
school
flamethrower.
supplies, the flamethrower,
Mhm.
the
kids
Star
love
Wars,
this.
the Star Wars grill cover. I mean,
Yeah.
to make it look like R2D2 is on your back deck. I am copywriting that right now. That's all there is to it. I just came up with it, and I'm copywriting it. A grill cover for those old Weber grills, round cover, R2D2.
I love it.
I'm making it.
Start screaming when your food reaches temperature.
Yay! Perfect. I'm going to get China on the line right now. Okay, the entire grill is shaped like R2D2. Even better. And all of the utensils come out of down below. You pull out the spatula and everything else.
Sure. Yeah. You just you know the horizontal blue silhouette
Yep.
things that are just below his neck there.
Yep.
That's where you slide your wood chips in
There you
when
go.
when you want some mesquite flavor.
I was thinking you pull that out and that's a little tray to set all your stuff on.
Somebody better be writing this down. This is a good idea. Rob Turner says, I saw multiple shoulder bags and purses that are D&D at Goodwill.
Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, and I like when the OGL crisis blew up some time ago, there was a letter that was sent out by Wizards of the Coast to influencers, to D&D influencers, talking to them about how to stay safe in the face of all the negative press.
Safe.
To safe, because you can't just turn the computer off and walk away from it. You might get hurt. Anyway, but yeah, there are D&D influence. I mean, there was a. Go ahead, Yang.
I was going to say that's why the Critical Role crew made their own game.
Yeah,
they're worried about getting sued. So
yeah. But yeah, so I feel like the influencing is going on, but I still it's somewhat pure. But the one thing that I can tell people with the culture comp seemingly shifting back to sanity, TTRPGs, culturally speaking, lag about 5 years behind movies, comics, TV shows, and other media franchises. We down here in the trenches of pen and paper, we've still got 3 or 4 years of rough rides left of influencers and all the other culture war stuff left to ride out. It's gonna get better, but not as quickly as things are seemingly returning to sanity. So,
well,
that's all I'm going to say about that.
That sort of brings us to the next question. Will Hollywood find a mountain of box office gold or a pile of something brown this year? Does anybody still go to see movies? Is there anything worth seeing coming out? Gentlemen?
I kind of want to see 28 Years Later, but that's all I see coming up that really is grabbing hold of me.
I haven't seen anything in the last things I saw in the theater. We did go see the D&D movie. The boys took the boys to that, and we did go see Wonka. Took the boys to that as well. That's what we do. We take the boys to things. We haven't. I haven't gone to a movie. The last movie I went for myself was Dune 2. Return of the Killer Dune.
Wasn't that last year too?
The Dune-ing.
Last year or the year before, something like that.
Oh,
I can't even remember now. I don't remember. Time has lost all meaning.
I have surprisingly heard good things about Thunderbolts, which is basically your Dollar Tree version of the Avengers. All the secondary characters that nobody really cares about from all the Marvel movies, well, they get together to form their own group.
I thought that's what Guardians of the Galaxy was. The what? And then it became the biggest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like 50-50. After seeing the newest Captain America, my faith has not been restored in Marvel movies.
No. I think that's done for a while. They can't.
Well,
there is no more milk in that cow.
I mean, if you had something that's just a nice, well done action movie with superhero type characters, I could potentially see that.
It would have to be so far from the formula they have followed so many times, because it's always the same. I mean, to the point of parody, the sky beam, the horde of faceless
Yeah.
aliens, it has become such a parody of itself. They would have to go so far from that, the way Joker did. Offgrid just mentioned the first Joker. That was
Mm.
such a different take on a superhero movie, right? Well, supervillain movie. That they'd have to go that far from their pattern, and I don't know that they're capable of it. I think the banter and the jokes and the irony is just going to continue because it worked so many times, and Hollywood loves what worked, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm cynical about this. I also just like by the time it got to Endgame, I was like, I didn't bother anymore, right? Like it's already over. I'm not, and that was the good series, right? It's just formulaic.
Yeah. Well, this brings up my next question. The Last Squeeze might be the Fantastic Four movie. Now, I will say about the Fantastic Four movie, they got a lot of the looks correct. It feels very much like classic 1960s Fantastic Four.
Third time's the charm.
I still have questions. Everyone's complaining that they used a woman to play the Silver Surfer. My big problem is why in 2025 does she look worse than the Liquid Terminator?
Yeah, I was having this discussion the other night. The Terminator 2 was on FX because, I mean, Marvel movies and that. What else are they going to show, right?
Exactly.
There's an iconic scene in Terminator 2 of the many iconic scenes when Robert Patrick, who utterly chilling portrayal of the T-1000, he is chasing Linda Hamilton through the insane asylum, and he comes to the bars and he stops and pushes his way through. Now, when we saw that in theaters was it 90 or 91?
92, maybe
92, I think. When we saw that in theaters, that was jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
We didn't know movies could do that. And then it just kept getting better. We just kept seeing more and more stuff, melding in, breaking his way into the helicopter, melding in, and then still as that, looking at the pilot, get out, everything about the T-1000. There's a YouTube channel, and it's run by a couple of small film producers. And of course, nowadays, the computers that they rendered the T-1000 with back then were multi-$100,000 Silicon Graphics machines, SGIs. In terms of raw clock speed and memory, you could probably go get as generally potent a computer at Goodwill for $25 or $30.
Yeah. If it wasn't already in the landfill.
If it wasn't already in the landfill. Back then, a Silicon Graphics engineer probably couldn't have conceived of a single processor chip that had 8 physical CPU cores inside of it.
Yeah.
And then 16 logical cores on top of that. So these two guys, they set up challenges. Can we reproduce these iconic film scenes? And they did the T-1000 walking through the bars with modern computers. They could not make it look as good.
Yeah.
And they admitted that. They were like, we got close, but
there is artistry in limitation. You look at for me, nothing exemplifies it as clearly as Star Wars and the remake, or the remastered, the special edition, the whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The tattoo, the first cantina scene, and the one that Lucas, this is what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it is there. The limitations demand creativity. It demands that the artist be brought out. When you have all the toys, then the technician takes over. And technician, can do technical things, but they can't make art. That's not what that's artists make art. And the limitations demand the artist be there. So to me, like you see that, they didn't do the T1000 as well going through the bars because they had too much at their fingertips, right?
Yeah.
I always find, you look at who wrote better than who wrote the English language better than Shakespeare, maybe Milton, and they were writing in constraints. They were writing it within, the iambic pentameter and rhymed couplets in his sonnets demands a level of artistry that just going on the page doesn't need, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. They got too much. They got too much.
I think you're absolutely right. And look, I make no secret. My favorite film of all time is Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who are very down on the sequel. I loved the sequel, and one of the most ridiculous criticisms I saw put forward by Razor Fist was, oh, well, Villeneuve and all his CGI stuff. Denis Villeneuve did as much practical work on that film as was practical.
Yep.
I mean, there were things that studios were just not going to pay for or wait for, but things like the winter city streets in Los Angeles, yes, they built gigantic sets and filled them with fake snow and with fog. Not a touch of that is digital. They built model cities just like Ridley Scott had done for a lot of the process shots. He wanted to recapture that same feel, and my gosh, did he do a good job of it.
Yeah.
But where we come full circle back with, the Marvel films and everything, it just, it's a script by committee that gets put into a server farm, and then a movie comes out of it after 8 or 10 overpaid actors and actresses, stand in front of a green screen for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then, it's like, what is the meme from Red Letter Media? Don't question product, just enjoy, then wait for new product.
Yeah. Consume.
Consume. CONSOOM. Consume.
Yeah.
We're going to be telling you people to do that, not Hollywood.
No, consume us. Consume our stuff, not their
exactly.
stuff. We have a line of mugs and t-shirts coming out.
Yes.
Keychains coming out.
That's
soon.
right.
Buy those.
Flamethrowers.
Flamethrower keychains.
The kids are going to love that.
We should sell secret decoders.
Oh, speaking of product placement, I've got to do a product placement because Fleetwood, my eldest, came and gave me this. This is actually Bob Johnny, our youngest, put together the Heroes of Honeywood. You have to watch my recaps to know
that is
this.
awesome.
Touchberry and Faux Fire and Fleetwood and Bob Johnny out of Lego. He wanted
very nice.
Yes.
Nice.
So product placement, buy Lego. Link in the description. Sorry.
So just to get to off-grid gaming, he says he wishes they would release remastered, not remakes, of classic movies in the theater. They actually are doing those.
Well, I just saw a story that the original Star Wars, not even the one that was released for when they released it in
Special
81,
edition,
not even special edition, but even because they brought it back into the theater in 81, and there were a few things tinkered with. The sound was tinkered with. The episode 4 was added, but the original thing that showed up in the theaters in 77. And I didn't catch what the film festival was, which festival it was at, but they're screening it at a film festival, and I hope it becomes the first of many. I hope they're like, people would pay for this because we'd pay to go see them. I'd take the kids.
I can't say which movie specifically, but if you check your theaters, especially larger theaters that have, when the age of the multiplex was, so they have too many theaters to show stuff during the summers, especially a lot of times for matinees, they will have older movies. It's
Mhm.
something that started not long after places started reopening after COVID. There just wasn't any movies in production. So they would have like Back to the Future, and they would have, a lot of these classic movies. Many places are still doing that. I know Studio Ghibli re-releases their films into theaters every year. It's usually one film a month, and depending on the theater, it might be daytimes only, it might be all day. But if you go support your big corporate megaplex,
Yes.
I'm sure they would
Last
love your
year,
money.
last year we saw in March of last year we saw Labyrinth, which I had never
Mhm.
seen. I had never seen Labyrinth beginning to end.
Really?
Oh,
I'd seen pieces of it, but so the wife wanted to see it. We went and saw it, and it was magnificent. It was very enjoyable. And then at Christmas time, we went to see White Christmas.
Yeah.
Danny Kaye and Bing Crosby in glorious VistaVision, and it was a lot of fun. If somebody told me that they were going to do a weekend showing of Blade Runner at our local AMC, you bet your ass I'd be
Oh,
down there.
Gen X would be out for that. Someone is earlier saying they wish they could see, Conan and all these.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh my gosh, go
Gen
see
X,
Conan.
we would dump so much money into theaters
Yep.
if they would do
Yep.
that.
I
And advertise the idea. We aren't touching this at all. This is
Yeah.
going to look just like it did in the 80s. It's going to look
10
exactly, poor film quality and everything.
10 11 years ago, I went to Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Mhm.
There was a Raiders of the Lost Ark show at AMC.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun
Yeah.
to see that in the movie theater. No, the credits weren't sped up at the end. I didn't have to keep shifting around because my couch springs are busted. I just sat there and enjoyed it exactly as it should be. Fill the damn theaters with movies we want to see.
Yeah.
I
They
mean,
don't have to make a single new movie. They would
no.
bring in money hand over fist because Gen X now has the money to spend. We'd go out and we would Goonies if they had Goonies in the theater.
The
Right?
literally the only thing that I would want out of a Star Wars re-release of the original trilogy, the unadulterated original trilogy, is the Luke in the dark side tree on Dagobah. And the reason why is all the prints, all the footage that Lucas shot of that scene were destroyed. They were lost, except one. And if you have it on Laserdisc, which I do, if you have it on VHS from the time or you recorded it or whatever, there are literally like daily work print levels of film degradation in it. There are lines that there are cigarette burns that are obvious that pop up when it plays. There are serious cracks in the film. And that was all they had. They had wrapped production. They were editing the film and they were like, shit, we can't put this back together again. I mean, nowadays they would just be like, mouse click, mouse click, mouse click, mouse click.
Yeah.
It's fixed.
Done.
Fix that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, let's see them as they are,
Yeah.
and make it premium. Sell me a little program in the lobby about the movie.
Heck yeah.
Hell, you can go on eBay. Back in the day, 2001, Lawrence of Arabia, Ben-Hur, you could buy a program.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like, who's in this movie? Well, let's see.
Yeah.
There's some interesting, photos, production photos and stuff like that. You give me something like that for Blade Runner. You give me something like that for Star Wars. You give me something like that for Raiders, Jaws, Dirty Harry,
Yep.
Red Dawn, Wales, Red Dawn,
You got like the
popcorn ammo can for Red Dawn.
That would be awesome.
Wait, it is like the Reagan presidency in a movie.
I would live in the theater.
Oh man,
AMC points, they would end up owing me money. I'd see so many movies.
There was a meme went around. It wasn't even a meme. It was just a shot of the newspaper from one weekend in 1985 or something, in 84, 85. And it showed the movies that were playing. And it was like one of those best action movies ever lists, because they were all top shelf things. It's all the stuff we've been talking about, but it was happening on the same weekend.
Yeah.
Insane.
Nice.
I mean, summer of 1982. Summer of 1982. Yeah. Let's go see a movie. What do you want to see? Do you want to see The Thing? Do you want to see E.T.? Do you want to see Blade Runner? Do you want to see Tron?
Yeah.
Because they're all in the theater.
Oh, go a little bit later. You're gonna have Jedi, which I know people is the least of the three original, but it's still one of the original. You're gonna have Ghostbusters. You're gonna, like, it's crazy how wonderful. We had no idea, people.
Yep.
If you are younger, you don't know. We didn't realize what we had.
We didn't realize what we had. Starman.
We thought
gosh.
We thought that's what movies were like. Yes. We thought that's what movies were. And it's not. Apparently, movies are garbage. We lived in a beautiful time.
Yeah. And I would just move it. I just tell, Colleen, I'm going to it's 11 o'clock. I'm going to the movie theater. I'll be home tonight at 9, although with the prices movie tickets are, I might have to do what I did back then, or someone who is not me did back then. And maybe, possibly, maybe take myself to the restroom.
Well, but see, this is the beauty of re-releasing movies that are that old. It costs Hollywood almost nothing. Maybe you have to digitize the prints because you don't ship film these days. It's all off a central server. But why not? It doesn't cost them anything. It can only serve to help newer movies because you gotta sit through like 45 minutes of previews or whatever it is.
45 minutes is about right.
And the second thing is you need to habituate people into wanting to go to theaters again. So at least make it an enjoyable experience.
Yeah. There, Robovsky, there actually is a second run film theaters here. They're still around, but there's one up here, film.ca. It's the name of the theaters. I don't know why they gave it an internet address for a name, but and you can go and you can see. That's actually how I saw the first Dune, because I've been meaning to go to it, and then I didn't. But it was still playing there, and I caught it on its way out. And the guy when I went there, he said, "Good choice." It's just 20-something,
When you say the first Dune, you mean Villeneuve's film, right?
Yeah. Sorry,
okay.
The first of the. Yeah, I wasn't in Canada when the first Dune came out.
I saw Lynch's '84 Dune in the theater. I loved it. I adored it.
It's great. It's weird. Very weird.
It is an art.
Lynch. Yeah,
that movie is an art.
Yeah.
So usually production companies and movie theaters, after the 5th week, they're splitting the revenue from movies 50-50. Yeah. Wouldn't it behoove you, especially like if you're making a sequel movie, why don't you re-release the previous, like Dune 1 a month before Dune 2 comes out, so people can catch up? You're going to make more money than with streaming services, although we do have this story. Ted Sarando says, theatrical experience is an outmoded idea for most people. Claims Netflix is saving Hollywood. Should we thank Netflix for saving us, boys?
Let's do remember that the kids for the kids today, speaking to another human being in person is an outmoded idea. Okay, so
it's true.
We got some weirdness to work through here. So I can see where, like, go to a room with other people in it. Oh, yuck. I mean, I could see that being something that turns off the kids.
I have been hearing that movie theaters are dead since 2000.
Yeah.
I mean, one day a walk-in theater is going to wind up like a drive-in theater, Yeah, there'll be one or two, but by and large, there'll be mega churches or Amazon warehouses. But I don't think we're there yet. I mean, to me, this is kind of the equivalent of wearing a sandwich board, walking up and down the sidewalk, ringing a bell, yelling, "The end is nigh." Repent now, the end is nigh on your sandwich board. One day that guy's going to be right. But I mean, as far as Netflix goes, Netflix is essentially an awful company. They when they do good stuff, they wreck it by running it into the ground, or they don't give us enough. I mean, what was it? Mindhunter. Mindhunter was amazing. It was probably some of the best TV I have ever watched. Yeah, just gone. Yeah, no, we don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
They had a note about that just last week, I think. David Fincher, who is responsible for Mindhunter, he came out and said that the series was too expensive. It was a bunch of dudes sitting around a prison. How expensive could that have been to make?
Yeah, with all respect, because the actor lineup they had was simply amazing, and how they found a lookalike for that particular serial killer, and he looked exactly like him. You know what? If you saw Mindhunter, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm just like, but with all respect to that amazing stable of actors, it's not like the lineup was, Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Holland in that movie, or in that TV show. And you're right, Yang. It was literally just, I mean, just people driving around in 70s cars and 70s and 80s cars and clothes. And sitting in offices. What the hell was so expensive about that?
Yep.
But anyway, Mindhunter was amazing, but apparently too expensive. Now I have loved Stranger Things, but those kids are like pushing 20 now.
It's becoming 21 Jump Street.
Yeah, I mean,
hello, kids.
By the time we get to season 5, 11's going to be as old as Will's mom. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I've said that by the time it's over, all these kids will be on their second marriages.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and the thing about it is, the premise was it was going to be like Back to the Future Part 3. It was like season 4 ends, season 5 starts. Because, here's the red cloud, it's coming over Hawkins, and oh no, the world's going to end, and we're going to have to jump right back into the action. So how are you going to convince me that these actors and actresses who are obviously 6 years older, I mean, let's be honest, with David Harbour, it's like, yeah, he's a middle-aged guy, whatever. But with the kids,
they got crow's feet,
Yeah, exactly. It's just so they've run it down, and that's another symptom of Netflix sucks. And I look at some of the stuff that the Netflix has put out. No, you guys aren't saving anything.
No,
you're really super not. And when streaming services cut deals with each other, because they do, it's like, oh, cool, Magnum PI season 1's on Netflix. I don't know if it is right now, but I remember getting really excited about that. Magnum PI season 1 on Netflix. Oh, you don't have season 2. Search my digital box. It's over on Amazon. Oh, cool. I go over there. Season 2 was literally pay per episode. I already pay for Amazon Prime. You're charging me like $4 an episode to watch Magnum PI season 2.
Well, that or buy the DVD from Amazon.
Yeah.
I found
movies.
Some things.
Own your movies.
Well, actually, owning movies is not always so easy. I wanted to get a copy of Arsenic and Old Lace, the Cary Grant.
Oh, nice.
Boris Karloff.
Great film.
It was the first stage play I was in when I was in high school, and I remember it fondly, and I wanted to get the movie, show the kids, because at Christmas we watched It's a Wonderful Life. It's like, let's just watch real Christmas movies. And so I wanted to get that DVD. Now no, you can't. You just can't. Yeah, maybe you can get it in Hungarian or something.
Yeah.
And in a European, you got to buy a European DVD player or something. But no, I can't find one. I would think that would be the kind of thing the library would have a copy. Nope. So
Well, there's a reason people sail the high seas.
yes, I'm trying to even find a place to pirate it from. But it's not like one of the movies that someone would automatically think, oh, we got to put that up online. It's a little niche, right?
So
that is true.
did anybody not see it coming that not just Netflix, but Amazon, Tubi, everybody, all the streaming services were going to become just as bad as cable? Did anyone not see that? Everybody was like, cable is dead. I'm canceling my cable. I'm going, Netflix is $20 a month and I get hundreds of movies. And I'm like, this isn't, guys, either cable companies are going to buy the streaming companies, or the streaming companies are going to become as bad as the cable companies. Lo and behold, how much is it a month? $79 a month or something. If you want all the bells and whistles on a streaming package now, you're paying hundreds of dollars a month for TV. And many of those streaming services, Netflix included, are putting commercials in the stuff that there are like, I pay the platinum, gold scepter, diamond encrusted toilet tier of service for Netflix. I don't, but one might. You're still getting commercials.
Yeah. Off grid, we've got that little house, the big, huge chonky thing of that was the while Mama's making dinner videos for quite a long time. They're great. They're fun, especially that was when the kids were a lot littler. Yeah, no, the whole business model of, okay, we're going to offer all this stuff. You subscribe for a low rate, you'll get everything we've got. Well, we're going to have to raise our rates a little bit. Now we're going to hive off this part, and you can still get all of this for the original, but this over here, you're going to have to pay a little more for them. And everything over here is going to have commercials in it. And eventually everything here, even after you pay a premium, it'll have commercials too, right? It is, unless you've got a physical disc, not a file on your computer that can be either corrupted or changed, or you just lose the file. Unless you got a disc. I'm buying DVD players just to keep in the closet, so that when one breaks, because you can't repair anything anymore, when one breaks, I can just put another one on the shelf. If I can even find a DVD player at this point.
The first one is free, said a thin white Duke. Anyway. So no, I disagree with that thesis that they are saving Hollywood in the same way that after a church potluck, everybody takes 2 dollops of casserole in one of the little disposable Gladware containers to take home, put in their fridge, and then look at a month later going, oh God, that's just mold, and throw away. That's how they're saving Hollywood.
They're saving it like a ship is sinking and they pull up alongside and they get the crew off and then sail away and let everything else sink. Because the actors still have jobs, the directors still have jobs, the writers still have jobs, but the movie industry is hurting.
I sure do love it when actors and actresses try and tell me how to think these days.
Oh yeah,
because when I went to Star Wars when I was a kid, I was sitting there just clicking my heels together, loving every minute of it, going, "Gosh, oh man, I hope Luke Skywalker turns out to be a sanctimonious prick."
I wonder how Han Solo votes. That's what I really want to know.
Yeah.
I don't care who shot who shot first, him or Greedo, but what I want to know is, what is their stance on international trade?
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, wow, that
off grid. I still have the original trilogy of Star Wars on VHS, and I have held on to them with the belief that at some point I will find a working VHS player.
I think we still have a VCR.
Yeah.
my wife's insistence, I believe we do still have a VCR. She has the last release of Star Wars before the remasters began, the 20th anniversary in 1997. She bought the 3-tape box set and got it autographed by David Prowse.
Yeah, I've got the 3-tape box set from it was 91 or 92, something like that. So it was just the movies. It was just the movies. There was no farting around with it. There was no. Yeah.
I have the up there on my shelf overhead. I have the definitive collection Laserdisc set, 9 discs, hours and hours of interviews with cast and crew that have never been reproduced. They only exist on that Laserdisc. My Laserdisc player is broken.
Good luck finding one of those.
I know.
You'll find an 8-track tape deck first.
I'm gonna have to find somebody who can replace that for me.
Looks like Walmart has one.
Restored.
Oh.
Well, that's not, restored with the original remote. $180. That's about what they were. The first now they were about $500 the first time.
Yeah.
Oh well.
So was that all the mud we wanted to throw on Netflix, or I don't want to just jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that's questionable is, Hollywood will on occasion, even in the present day, turn out a banger.
Oh, yeah.
When was the last time anyone has really talked about a great movie coming out on Netflix? Like it's become like a cultural thing. Hasn't happened.
Oh no, we can you can push that back. I wasn't saying bring this up right now.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
No,
that's okay.
That's not what I wanted to. But yeah, I mean, that was just my point. If Netflix, I could see potential in Netflix, quote unquote, like saving the film TV industry, but you'd have to start producing a lot more. And maybe you could make that argument 10 years ago, when they had House of Cards and the Netflix, at least Daredevil, let's put it that way. And they had some other really nice series, but now it's just like schlock.
Yeah, it really is. I can't think of the last time I ever, other than Stranger Things season 4, last time I ever said, "Oh, this is on Netflix. I can't wait to watch this."
Yeah.
And also, I think my habits are changing. I was very much a binger. Like I remember. Like in one day, I it may have been the first season of Orange is the New Black or something, or maybe it was Breaking Bad. But I started watching one episode and I was just like, more. But that's long past. I'll watch an hour of TV now and just be like, I'm done. So maybe that factors into it. I don't know.
The last thing I did that with was the Tick. And it wasn't even really that great, but I had nothing else going on.
I loved the Amazon The Tick. And that's another example of, we have this amazing show. And it's you don't get it anymore. Hey, Peter Serafinowicz as The Tick was just such a riot.
No, it was.
Although fun. The terror, man.
I thought it was good. It wasn't like, brilliance, but it was fun.
I thought it was brilliant, but anyway.
I never saw the Amazon one.
You need to avail yourself of it, my friend. The comic was guys. This goes back to the 1990s when independent comics were really kicking. Read The Tick from New England Comics. You don't have to track down the first issue or the first print run and spend hundreds of dollars. Just get a trade paperback, read it. It was hilarious. One thing that they did, because back then Marvel and DC were both crossovers. So New England Comics got into the crossover game, and they would say, in this issue of The Tick, Paul the Samurai, that was another comedy comic book that NEC put out. And you would see like the Tick and Arthur are in the foreground having a discussion. A block up the street, Paul the Samurai is fighting ninjas for one panel while they walk along. And then that month's issue, Paul the Samurai would say, in this issue, the Tick. And it's that same panel, but with a fight scene.
Reversed.
And yeah. And I thought the TV show really came across. It really carried that ridiculous Ben Edlund humor very well. But 2 seasons and then they canceled it on us. So
yeah.
So you don't have much binging to watch, Yang, if you want to watch it.
Well, I watched the original cartoon that was on Fox,
which was also brilliant.
That was fun.
Which was amazing.
Yeah.
I liked how they had a whole episode that clearly was just written so they could get the joke. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
I just the so many things, so many setups for things. The Tick versus multiple Santa. Run, Arthur! It's a Yule tide.
They even had an episode banned.
Did they?
It was the Tick versus the evil midnight bomber. What bombs at midnight?
Yes.
It aired once right before the Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah.
And then they were like, nope, no more.
Bad timing.
No, baby, no.
Well.
Well, speaking of remasters, speaking of re-releases of things, now you can show it. Okay. If you've been living under a PC gaming rock for the last 2 decades, and with the price PC gear costs these days, I don't blame you for hanging on to your vintage systems. Bethesda has re-released the classic fantasy RPG computer game, The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. It is the game, in case you came in at the Elder Scrolls with Skyrim. It is a game that precedes Skyrim, sets up a little bit of the lore in Skyrim, and of course, it came on the heel of Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, which came from Daggerfall, which came from Arena. But and then there are a bunch of ancillary games, but that's not relevant to this. We have the Elder Scrolls for Oblivion remastered. And I got to say, it's not super spendy. You can jump into it for around $50, which, considering what computer games are doing these days, is a pretty steep price, or is a pretty good price compared to the steep prices. Now, some people are saying, well, the graphics are ugly and uncanny valley, and I haven't played it yet. I played the original, and if you played the original, how your character looked, how NPCs looked, were a meme factory. It was like, that approximates what a human might be like if you just got an AI to describe it to you. Levels of odd. There was no, I'm going to make a beautiful version of myself for the game. You just kind of, it was more about the stats, right? Like, you know how in D&D you can say, well, this person's got a charisma 7, but they're really attractive. They're just really harsh and have bad personal habits and are ugly in how they present themselves. This was kind of that. You just had to kind of rely on it. Now, one of the things that modders did immediately, because the guts of the game are open to tinkering, and one of the saving graces of Bethesda's open world games, be their Fallout games, their or the Elder Scrolls games, is the modding community. People will jump on stuff immediately and say, I'm going to fix that bug. I can see where you guys started a quest, but you didn't completely implement it in the game. So you just put a 3D model that stops people from going into this cave. I'm going to dig through the code and the scripts and find all that stuff and finish it. And, I'm going to have this, I'm going to do that. It is a wonderful, wonderful, rich world. of modding. Initially, Bethesda, because of the graphics engine that Bethesda is using, they said, yeah, you're not going to be able to mod it. It's the latest Unreal Engine. It'll look good. You won't need to mod it. Forgetting that
Challenge.
so many of the mods for Oblivion were put there not to fix the graphics, but to fix the gameplay, which fortunately is still accessible because it's new graphics running on top of the same janky creation engine program. At any rate, so they released the game. It's the same storyline, same voice actors. There's a lot of quaint stuff. There's literally a point in the game where you can walk up to an NPC, and I think it only happens once in the entire game. But if you bump into this NPC, you'll be like, wait a minute, what did I just hear? Because the voice actress who's voicing this peasant, when you walk up to them, she says her dialogue, and then the voice actress, in a very plain conversational voice, goes, wait a minute, let me run that again. And then she says the lines again in a slightly different voice affectation. The voice actress redid her line on the spot in C2, and they just let the whole take in when they released the game. That is still in the new version. People have found it, and they're like, oh, it's charming, you know. But so Bethesda said no mods, and people have been modding the heck out of it almost immediately, or updating their mods from back in the day. And of course, folks are very happy about that. As I said, Bethesda left most stuff alone. One of the things that the company who re-released the game for Bethesda didn't was they changed your options from playing a male or female, man, woman, call it what you will, to body type 1 and body type 2. And so modders looked at that and said, well, that's a little silly. Here's a mod that makes it male and female again. This kicked off a border skirmish of Culture Kampf, the throwing around of the German National Socialist Workers' Party's name. There are some things we do have to be careful about here on YouTube. Just a firestorm of controversy. The biggest modding site, Nexus Mods, brought an iron fist down and said, no, you're not going to do that. You are being exclusionary. You are being a bigot. You are. And then, of course, their cheerleaders said, it's just 2 words, bigot. What does it matter? And then they had that thrown back in their faces. Okay, it's just 2 words. Let me change those words to male and female. So there was just a huge rigmarole about this until finally Nexus Mods backed down. They said, but of course they did it with a 4-paragraph explanation of how they're not alt-right, they're not exclusionary, they're not phobes, they're not bigots, but sometimes you have to do things that you have to expose ugliness for what it is. So we're allowing this mod. You don't have to use it. We're not endorsing it, but it's out there. I just thought it was kind of ridiculous. A AAA title, a remaster of a game that a certain half generation of gamers loved. That was their first Elder Scrolls game. You know, it's kind of like SNL. You know how people are like, man, SNL was only good when it was, John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase and Jane Curtin and yada, yada. And then there are other people that are like, SNL didn't get good until it was Dennis Miller and Dana Carvey and John Lovitz. And then there are other people who are like, I don't know how you can stand to watch that. Nowadays, it's good. And so it's the same with Elder Scrolls games. There are people who say that the only good Elder Scrolls games were the super janky ones that only ran under DOS and so on and et cetera. And it just kind of marches on. But yeah, that caused a bit of controversy. But if you never played Oblivion, you can pick it up for $50. You can give it a spin. So for the gameplay experience, I think it's fine. I think it's a good game, but your mileage may vary. And if you're that hyped up about, men and women in your game, there's a little mod you can download that changes 2 words. But that's all I have to say on that topic. Any thoughts, gentlemen? Yang, any desire to play an Elder Scrolls game?
No, not. There's a lot of games that I would like to play, but I don't have time. And the problem is, I would get sucked into them and like want to play them 24/7, and then not get things done and get divorced. And so,
Oblivion's an open world game. You literally make gameplay for yourself as you play the game. Yeah, I'm not proud of my hours spent on Skyrim and the Fallout games, and that one. I played that one before Steam was a thing. I just bought a copy of it and played it. Yeah, not proud of myself. Not particularly proud of myself for that. So yes, if you have an addictive personality, avoid open world games like the plague.
Yeah. The last video game I played was Riven, and that's really not even a video game.
I have been moving these marbles for 3 hours. What does it do?
That's about it.
I've lined up all the red ones. Now I got to line up all the blue ones. But to line up all the blue ones, I got to scramble all the red ones.
That's kind of the story of it. Yeah. I'm that's one area in which I'm woefully unprepared to be on a nerd council, because video games and me, just not. I had a PlayStation, and then my girlfriend's cat ate through the cord and fried the whole system. I thought it was just the controller, but no, it fried the whole system. So then she got me. By that time, PlayStation 2 was out. So in as an apology, she got me that. And then I discovered it could play DVDs, and that's all I ever used it for after that. Just watched movies on it.
Yeah, I got one of those retro NES systems. It's got like 1,000 games on it, so that's about all I got.
My brother-in-law gave me this.
Oh, nice!
It's a joystick with games on it.
Oh, those are awesome. Awesome. You can pick those up, I think, still today at like Dollar General and so on. They're fantastic, though.
You want to play 50? I got this for Christmas. It's still in the box, so that's me in video games.
Yeah,
I will eventually.
You gotta figure out how to work them into the sermon, Padre. That's the key right there.
What, me playing them?
Yeah.
To understand properly what our Lord is saying here, just watch me beat this level of Frogger.
As Daniel had to go through the lion's den, so you will have to go past Yargle to get the yellow key, so you can get the gold cup in Atari's Adventure.
Yeah, you are.
I bet the church would have a great sound system for it, though.
No, we're Anglican. We don't do projectors and sound system. There's no soundboard at the back of our church. No.
I think I've mentioned this before. Our Easter sermon one year, our pastor, it's amazing guy. I really miss him a lot. He retired, Pastor Barry, but Pastor Barry, he referenced the Lord of the Rings in the Easter sermon, and we were just over the moon when we picked the kids up from the Sunday school, and we're making our way out across the parking lot. And, he had said his goodbyes there in the narthex and so on, and we ran into him as he's getting in his car, and we geeked out because we were like, I married Arwen. I'm the brother-in-law to Galadriel, and my daughters are both have Tolkien names. I'm not going to dox them, but yeah, we were just gushing. We thought that was so cool. It was a great sermon in general, but we quite liked the Lord of the Rings reference there. You could go with something like that, couldn't you?
Oh, I regularly drop Lord of the Rings
yes
references in and other fantasy, sci-fi, whatever. I can't remember what the last one was, and it was a bit of a reach, but it did actually. I can't remember now. I don't.
As Johnny Rico armored himself to drop on the skinnies on Clendetho, you must armor yourself in the word of the Lord.
I get people talk about what you said last week. I don't even remember what I said last week. I'm like, I had no idea what I preached. I don't know. Sounded good at the time.
Something. Be good to each other. Do
Blah
God
blah
things.
Jesus. Blah blah
yeah.
resurrection. Blah blah salvation.
Something about Matthew. I don't know. Lots of people were saying things. But yeah, so Lord of the Rings references in sermons, everybody. That's why we keep them around.
Well, I mean, you don't have to go far with Lord of the Rings, right?
No, you don't. I mean, it's
the return of the king.
Yeah. And there's like key events in the books. He uses the Julian calendar, and key events in the books happen on biblically significant days.
Well, the ring is destroyed. I think it's on the Feast of the Ascension.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
they leave Rivendell on Christmas.
Yeah. There's all sorts of these things buried in there.
Frodo, what was the day Frodo awoke? I know it was March. It was a day. Oh gosh.
Well, it's March 25th. That's the Ascension.
Right.
Yeah. The Annunciation, not the Ascension. The Annunciation.
The
Ascension moves around because it moves with Easter.
Right. But anyway,
that's a whole other category of nerdiness. Church nerdy is a whole other nerdy.
Let's talk about calendars.
Speaking of calendars, can I plug something real quick, gentlemen?
Of course.
I am going hard in the paint because we are in the final countdown, folks. It is less than a month until the GWOC, the Great Underground Online Gaming Convention, being held over on Discord. $0 hotel fee, $0 badge fee. Snacks you got to pay for yourself. The only thing you really have to buy is some really awesome merch. Dungeon Minister did an absolutely horrifying.
Did you get that on a shirt yet? Did you?
I need to get that on a shirt. I'd be a 50-year-old walking around with a cannibal computer on.
But do you have like a Teespring or whatever shop that you've got it in?
No, I don't. Were we doing the Dungeon Minister I mean, you brought the art. I think you absolutely deserve a cut of the pie, but we can discuss that later. But we've got merch, folks. We've got discussion panels coming up with artists and creators and writers. It's going to be fantastic. 5 days. 5 days. We are starting on Wednesday, the 21st of May, all the way to Sunday, the 25th of May. It's going to be a gas. And again, it costs you $0. All you have to do is come over to the Discord, which I don't know how. I don't know how the Restream is about sharing links, Yang. But I will.
Yeah, populate share links.
I can share links. Okay, let me see if I can do this real quick. But
I've got to get my game on there. I kept saying I'll do that after Easter. Now it's after Easter. And I've run out of excuses.
Right.
You didn't say what year.
True.
So yeah, you can come and join us. This there's our private chat. And
private chat.
Paste that there. Put that there, and you can private chat. You can share that up on the screen. You can share it on the screen if you want. Yeah. But yes, you guys can join us. It's just going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to run games. Dungeon Minister's going to run a game. People are going to play in games. We've got a lot of people who are going to be there. So please stop by. The cost to you is nothing unless you want a really kick-ass piece of merch, and then you can buy that. So that is basically what I'm working up to for the rest of the month, between that and writing that D&D character generator software. But I don't even want to talk about that. It's giving me a headache to even bring it up.
Yes, and once I get my act together, I will be running a game there, part of Empire of the Undying Sun.
Excellent.
The part where things turn from happy D&D adventure to Evil Dead.
I'm looking forward to that. I really am. That about does it for me.
Wheeling Dragon, that link. No, That link. No, where is it? That link. That's how.
Yes.
It is also pinned in the chat on YouTube.
Yep. You just share them that, Wheeling Dragon, and they can find their way into Discord, which sounds a bit ominous, but what can you say? They can find their way into Discord.
All right, well, that's nearly 2 hours of nerdy goodness.
Oh my gosh, it was, and I'm famished. So,
hi, famished. I'm Dad. Sorry.
They don't call him the greatest comedian in the live streaming arena here on YouTube to talk about nerdy stuff in a ridiculous fashion for anything, guys.
Actually, they just don't call me that.
It's way too wordy that way.
Nobody calls me that now.
Today's sermon by Pastor just wouldn't work. So, gentlemen, we're further advancing our plans. The constructions of the offshore silos are proceeding apace. We'll discuss this in a private meeting, though. I've said too much enough already.
That's it. Good evening, everyone. And don't worry about the owlbears.